Hello and welcome to my podcast on radical self-love, an Ayurvedic perspective on healing body and mind. My name is Sandra Hayes and I'm a Vedic practitioner, meaning I utilize Ayurveda, yoga and Vedic astrology as well as transformational creativity to help you become a conscious creator of your own life, health and well-being. For more information and for access to my online learning platform, The Little School of Happiness, please go to www.sandrahayes.eu. The Yoga Sutras, as I mentioned before, they're a classic text on traditional holistic yoga. It's a list of almost 200 short little sentences or aphorisms that are divided into 4 chapters. And the first chapter describes the human psyche and what it is like in its optimal state. And then the second chapter is the chapter on practice, or how we reach that state, what we can do to reach that state. And those are the 2 chapters that for now are kind of important for our purposes. The Yoga Sutras, they deal really directly with disorders, with the various disorders of the psyche, and also how we can heal them or how we can make them whole again. Maybe there is one significant difference in the way that trauma is viewed. According to the mythologies, the Vedic teachings originated in an age that is called Satya Yuga, in which humanity generally lived in a much, much greater state of awareness, and therefore they would have perceived any disturbances much more sensitively than we do now. So what is normal for us, that was maybe something already pathological for the people of that age. Just in line with, what I mentioned in the last episode, or in the last previous episode with the Gabor Mate's book, The Myth of Normal, which I think is a fabulous book that really should be read. So I gave you an example last time. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the calming or cessation of the constantly fluctuating frequencies of our consciousness. And I mentioned these frequencies before. So what happens in the different state of our mind? We emit a different frequency, and these frequencies, which are caused by unconscious programming that is stored in our unconscious mind through unfinished experiences, which are trauma related experiences, and they only allow us to see the world through the emotional filter of these experiences. And so this is why Patanjali also distinguishes between knowing something in its truth and misunderstanding something. So right understanding and wrong understanding, because only when we are clear in our frequency, when we can see things very clearly, when the frequencies of our consciousness are calmed and the stored programs or traumata have dissolved, then only then can we perceive our environment really clearly and understand it right. And we can enter into a healthy relationship with it. And otherwise, we sometimes understand things wrong without really knowing that we understand it wrong. So, that means we judge things, we judge all sorts of experiences, and usually we're not really aware that we're doing that, and we're not really aware that this is only our subjective perspective that is colored by our experiences, by our traumatic experiences. because, trauma is really nothing but an unfinished process of digesting an experience. So just like in the Ayurvedic digestion, physical digestion, where we eat food and we digest it and then we eliminate the rest, and there's always a little bit of leftover waste that has to be metabolized as well. And if it's not metabolized, then it accumulates in our system as what we call ama, and becomes toxic and creates possible disease. And it's the same in the mind. So also here, these undigested experiences that are stored in our unconscious mind, they too become toxic over time and cause us to see the world in kind of a wrong way. And, only when these frequencies, these disturbances of the mind are calmed, then we can perceive the environment really clearly again. And these traumas, Patanjali explains that in the second chapter of practice, they arise mostly from a fear of death, usually, which as a result, fear of death is in essence a fear of any change. If I fear death, then I fear the death of the present moment as it is. So it's a fear of change, really, that can lead to avoidance of something, or also addiction of something and a false identification with something. So several personality disorders can evolve from that. And finally, also to a misunderstanding of the whole environment. And as already, mentioned before, what Patanjali says, how we can treat this state of being is by practice of consciousness. Abhyasa, Vairagya, Abhyamta, Nirodha. These programs, these unconscious conditioning programs, they can be dissolved through awareness and letting go. And that awareness is an acceptance or a recognition, rather, of the present moment and of the truth that is in us. So all these mindfulness practices that we know, they really are about, recognizing our truth. Is this in this moment really true for me? Does this ring true for me? How does that feel in my body right now? Am I living my truth? Am I speaking my truth? Am I acting in my highest truth? Am I being authentic? Am I living in integrity? That is the practice of abhyasa, really. And, this is the connecting to my own true self. And also, can I accept the present moment as it is and not have a resistance against it? And this is very important, because all the moments in our lives, whenever we've been truly happy, it's only because in this moment, it doesn't matter what made us happy, whether it's that we were in love, or we were, at a concert and had a great time, or we were lying on a beach somewhere in the sun. It doesn't matter what it was, but it was always the case that in this moment, we were able to completely welcome and accept the present moment as it is. So happiness really has more to do with being in the present moment than with any of the outer circumstances. So this is the practice of abhyasa, to be really aware. And I can only be completely aware when I accept something completely. So I'm accepting the present moment as it is, and I'm accepting also my own truth as it is. And it's a really, I think it's actually, personally, I think it might be the most important sutra in the whole text, because it is that practice of awareness that makes the biggest difference, is that practice of accepting my truth fully. In every moment, to ask myself, is this right now? Does this feel right? Is this my truth? Is this, can I accept the present moment? Is there a resistance? And if I have a resistance, can I let it go? There's a wonderful, because this is the second part of the sutra, is vairagya, is the letting go part, is equally as important, of course, because, if I have a certain expectation of the present moment that it's not giving me, then I'm setting myself up to be unhappy. If I have a certain expectation of the world to act in a certain way, usually I want the world to act similarly to how I would act, because then, I can feel that I'm right. So, but the world doesn't act in that way, and the people around me don't always think in the same way as I do. A really good example we all experienced was during COVID. When we had this extraordinary situation that triggered several different fears in everyone, and each of us, though, reacted differently, and we just had to accept the truth that we all are different, that it all triggers different types of fears in each of us. We could really clearly see, even, the Ayurvedic doshas, we could see, the kind of the pitta reaction of people becoming angry if somebody doesn't convert, and becoming like an expert on everything that's been going on. And we could see the vata reaction of, being really fearful of having to even use a mask and be somehow restricted in their movement, because that's vata. Vata needs to be free and moving around. So they had more fear of being stuck at home or having to wear a mask than of getting sick. And then the kapha reaction of, oh, sure, we'll just stay at home and do nothing. And going along with everything because it's, it's all right. Whatever is good for the community, we'll just do it. And so, everyone had their own reaction to it, and everyone was different in it. And so this is the truth of it. The truth is not one or the other, one against the other, but the truth is that everyone reacts according to their own personality, their own experiences, their own personal unconscious conditioning. And we just have to accept that as a truth. That is the truth. And we have to let go of certain expectations that we might have. And, only then do we have the chance of being happy, even in a difficult situation like that. And, if we feel that there is a resistance in us, then we have to look at that resistance maybe and accept and welcome that resistance, first of all, because that also is a truth of that present moment that we might have. There's a lovely exercise, wonderful exercise that everyone can easily try, and it's to experience what is the truth and what is the conditioning. So if we think of whatever resistance, whatever circumstance I am in at the moment that I might have a resistance to, that might be difficult for me. And so, maybe I have a resistance towards my job or something like that. And then I kind of try and identify that feeling of resistance. What is that resistance about? What is that, where does that come from? And maybe I'll realize, oh, actually, it's coming from a fear, from a fear of being seen, because maybe I want to, actually change something in my job, and I'm not changing it because I have a fear of stepping out of my comfort zone. So I'll try and sit with that fear, and instead of pushing it away, as we often do, we'll sit down now and actually welcome that fear and try to really make friends with it, because it is in this very moment a part of me, a part of my truth. And sometimes we can feel the body relaxing even as we say it out loud. Yes, I have a fear about that. If I admit that to myself, then, that's already, stepping into my truth. And then if I welcome that truth, and however long it takes, just spend some time as if it was a child who needs attention. Spend some time with that fear, welcome it, and because all of these emotions, they are here to get our attention. They do want to tell us something about us. So we'll sit with that fear and actually just feel that fear. And as we do that, usually it eases up a little bit. And then when we have that fear, when we can really feel that fear, and when we are able to actually welcome it into the present moment, then we switch and we try to imagine what would we feel like without that fear. If that fear was completely gone, what would be underneath that fear? And whatever it is, usually it's probably something like, I would feel relieved, I would feel free, I would suddenly have a sense of freedom to act in a way I really actually want to act without being held back by fear. So if I then invite that sense of freedom into my consciousness and try to really embrace that feeling and feel that feeling of freedom in this very moment, and then when I have the sense of, actually I can feel really free, if I just even imagine, not having fear, I can feel that freedom. And then when I have that, then I switch back to the feeling of fear again, and I invite the fear again into my consciousness. And then when I feel the fear, I go back to the freedom, and I do that a few times. I do that over and over until it doesn't take that long, takes 10 minutes maybe, but over time what will happen, and I haven't really seen any exception to this yet, the fear will become very clear and easy to feel, where the sense of freedom, not the fear, the sense of freedom will become stronger and will feel more real, and the sense of fear will begin to feel unreal and not really a part of me. So this is just a way of actually experiencing the difference. What is the difference between true understanding and false understanding, between, who am I really? When I ask the question, then at the end, who am I really? Am I the fear or am I the freedom? Then this is clearly, we're not the fear, we are the freedom. So this is the practice of abhyasa, the complete, consciousness, and vairagya. And we can really apply that to every single situation in our lives. And it makes life so much better, really, if we apply that, if we very regularly sit down and really consciously sense and feel into the body. Is this true for me right now? If we have to make a decision to really feel into the body, is this my truth right now? Is the body relaxing? If I imagine one decision against the other, for example, where does my body feel more relaxed? And if I have an uncomfortable emotion, to really sit with that emotion, to really embrace and welcome that emotion, and and then let it go. And, in the same way as we train our muscles in the gym, we also train our mind, our consciousness, to let things go. It's a really important practice to lose our fear of change, to lose our fear of death also. Death is inevitable. It's, the death of the body, as well as the death of each passing moment that we have to be aware of, that we have to be absolutely aware of if we want to live a happy life. So this is what the sutras are telling us over and over again, to be in the present moment completely, each moment, and let go of any expectations, of any resistance. And then we can make an informed decision about how to handle that situation or what to do with that situation. And to recognize as well that sometimes our actions, they are more a reaction to something that we've experienced in the past, and that, something in our unconscious mind is trying to save us from being hurt again. And so, we have a resistance. We have a resistance built in because our unconscious mind, or, our organism, is recognizing a certain situation as threatening because maybe it once was threatening, or something similar was once threatening in our life. And yeah, this is what Patanjali is telling us, to really practice present moment awareness in every way. So that's it for now, and thank you for listening. Bye for now. You were listening to a podcast on radical self-love, an Ayurvedic perspective of body and mind, by Sandra Hayes and the Little School of Happiness. For more information and offers, go to www.sandrahayes.eu.